Hello. I'm going to talk to you for a few minutes now about a literary device called the Unreliable Narrator. As you probably remember, we use the term narrator to mean the person telling a story. Now, I don't mean the writer of the story. Instead, I mean the necessarily fictional character whose voice we hear creating the world of a story. We count on that character for all the information about the story's characters and plot. And so the narrator becomes a very important character in any story we read. Even in third-person narration, where the narrator doesn't appear in the story, we help ourselves by thinking of the narrator as a character. Doing this allows us to connect with the story in that interpersonal way that a writer really looks for. We can experience the story as if it were coming to us through a person other than the writer, and we can evaluate how that person is presenting the story, and doing that helps us get more meaning from the story as we read. But what if that character lies to us? People do that all the time when they tell a story. They often add or leave out details for various reasons, to make themselves look better or to present a situation in a way that takes blame from them. Thus, we might think of some narrators as unreliable. We can't count on the narrator to tell us the story in a consistent or truthful way. For whatever reason, we're not getting a complete story from the narrator. Now, we often detect that unreliability when details change in a story. For example, a character described as having blue eyes by an unreliable narrator might suddenly have brown eyes later in the story. This discrepancy might or might not mean something, but we know that it breaks the reality of the story due to the actions of the unreliable narrator. So when we see details changing in a story, when we see inconsistency in the events or the characterization that we see in a story, we can often blame this unreliable narrator for the confusion we might start to feel. And knowing about the unreliable narrator can help us wonder why a writer might use this device. Well, I can think of a couple possible reasons. First, a writer might want to surprise the readers. Leaving out information and then later revealing it can make a reader see a story in an entirely different way. New information can make people who seemed like villains begin to seem like heroes, or can make incidences of cruelty seem like incidences of kindness. Our interpretation of the story changes as we get new information from the unreliable narrator. I'd give examples of this effect, but I don't want to ruin your enjoyment of certain novels. You can talk to me privately if you'd like to know more. A writer might also want to call attention to the illusion that literature creates. The writer might want us readers to remember that the story never actually happened, so that we don't get distracted by its plot or its characters from some other aspect. Not all writers who write a story do it because they want to tell a story. Sometimes they want to make a point about how people behave, or a point about their own philosophical ideas, and so it can help them to remind us that the story we're reading is not the recreation of true events, but rather something that someone made up. So the device of the unreliable narrator can serve a few purposes, as we've seen here. You might, as you keep reading and examining works of literature, see other uses of the unreliable narrator, and you can ask yourself, what is that unreliable narrator being used for? Why is the writer making a choice to withhold information or to give false information about a story as we read it? When we look as carefully as we can at what we read, we can often find surprises that deepen a work's meaning and help us get even more enjoyment from it. And looking out for the unreliable narrator can serve as one way to do this examination. As always, thank you for your time and attention.